I'm 19, and unfortunately I don't have a beard and I do look quite young. So when you're in a boardroom full of CFOs, CTOs, CEOs, and you walk in as a 19-year-old lad advising them on their marketing strategy, there's sometimes some contrast with that.
At 19, most people are figuring life out. He was walking into boardrooms.
I've always been absolutely obsessed with behavioral science and what influences people to do things.
Not textbooks, not theory, human behavior.
So I got caught after 6 weeks, making about £100 a week at the age of 13. So
His first business lesson didn't come from a classroom.
suddenly in 2 minutes, I'd earned £22. And in my head, I thought, well, what if we could times this by 30? That's what I could earn per hour.
That question changed everything.
Within 3 months of working with them, they actually signed a deal with Netflix, Black Mirror. And I was just blown away. And then I was doing a lot of work for them.
From cold calls to global brands.
Hello humans, welcome to the M-Word podcast brought to you by Mon. Today I'm joined by Jenson. Jenson, thanks for joining me.
Good afternoon. Look, I literally spend half of my life listening to podcasts, so to be on the first one is a massive privilege. I think it's great what you do.
Thank you, and thanks for joining me. Obviously, we met a couple of months back. I think said at the time I was very impressed by you. You're looking very dapper and making me feel very scruffy here for those watching the video as well. So thank you for making an effort. Apologies if you can see our breath is a bit cold in here.
Our conversation's smoking, that's why.
Yeah, indeed. But I should turn the heater off, but we'll be fine. It'll keep us warm.
All good.
So perhaps for our listeners, Jenson, just I suppose just introduce yourself, a bit of your background, and then we'll kick off from there. And I'm sure we could probably spend hours here, but we'll try and condense where we can.
Try to keep it not too long. So from a professional perspective, I founded a company called MGS. Some of you might know it, some might not be familiar with it. We're a marketing and communications company. Now we work with some of the island's most well-known e-gaming, CSPs, and finance companies. We essentially act as an outsourced marketing department for them. That's providing everything of the marketing function from strategy to content creation and sort of day-to-day management. So we sort of take that responsibility away from them, if that makes sense, while working as an internal team.
Okay. So let's start with the strategy point of that, because that, again, I guess some businesses are very clear on where they want to go.
Totally.
And you're there to support and deliver that. And then I suppose the situations where it's more, they need some support, perhaps it's not an area of expertise for that board or that.
Yeah, so we work with a variety of companies. So usually the companies that we'll work with, they'll sort of have a range of from 20 to sort of 150 employees. So it totally changes in what service we provide. So, for example, we might work with sort of a big gaming company, for example, and they might have a marketing team of 11. This is actually a current situation. And their marketing team, for example, want to focus on one specific part of the marketing function. So we'll come in and we'll just take care of the social media, for example. So that's really our bread and butter, is managing the sort of social media day to day. And we provide the whole function, to be fair. So we work with companies as more of a partner. Instead of charging them per project, we'll say, okay, we're going to come in as a marketing partner and we're going to support you across all areas of your function, from website design, as I said before, strategy, content, running campaigns, all of it really as a partner.
Okay, so I'm obviously the old man in the room here, and we'll get into more social media side of things. Yeah. It's an art within itself. Perhaps just, and again, we chatted a couple of days ago, I'm the least ageist person in the world, but clearly young, clearly entrepreneurial. But perhaps before we, and I don't want to harp on about your age, but just to set the scene a little bit, you started your own business. Talk us through that journey, through that process, and a bit just to get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, I don't usually try to talk about my age too much because, and it's not something I'm totally against, but people quite rightly sometimes judge you for your age. I'm 19. So I started the company 2 years ago. And unfortunately, I don't have a beard and I do look quite young. So when you're in a boardroom full of CFOs, CTOs, CEOs, and you walk in as a 19-year-old lad advising them on their marketing strategy, it's there's sometimes some contrast with that. But usually, to be fair, it's not too bad. You go in and you talk for a bit and they sort of see where that comes from. Why did I get into marketing? I suppose from a very, very young age, I've always been absolutely obsessed with behavioral science and what influences people to do things. I think this comes from a theatre background. So my whole life, I've always been that one kid in a dance class just full of girls and just being the one boy. So I'm used to sort of being on stage. And I suppose what I found fascinating from a young age was you could literally put a costume on and you could become a completely different character, and you could try and influence your audience. So let's say you're trying to make the audience laugh. Okay, what do I have to say, and how do I betray myself in order to make that audience laugh, in order to be a comedian in that situation? I suppose that correlates quite closely with marketing. I suppose I hate the word now because it's so overused, but entrepreneurialism. I suppose I had that from quite a young age. So I was the classic story of nearly getting suspended from high school for selling sweets. So I had a tin about the size of that. So I had a big tin, and it had two compartments to it. So the top compartment was full of pens, and the bottom compartment was full of all different types of sweets. So I go to Agrimark with my dad the night before, and he supported it. But this was when I was year 9, so it must be about 13. And I go into the common room, and I open this tin, and to the naked eye, it was just a layer of pens. But it had this flipping piece of cardboard, and you opened it, and it had this vast variety of sweets that I was selling. So I got caught after 6 weeks, but I made about £100 a week at the age of 13. So there was always an entrepreneurial aspect to what I sort of did, and I suppose that just formulated and came to something eventually. People are always saying entrepreneurs are sort of born, and I'm not sure that's quite true, to be honest. But yeah, it sort of came to something.
It's interesting because you're talking about the behavioural side of things, because that could take you down many different routes.
Totally.
So why marketing, do you think?
I mean, you're totally right. Like some of the best behavioural scientists are in the police. They're the detectives. Why marketing? Okay, well, I'll talk about my journey. So I was around 15, and I was rather at the time training to become a lifeguard, or I was a lifeguard. I can't quite remember. And I seen this video. I was also studying. I just started at the university, College Isle of Man, business management, and there was a big part of marketing to that. So I found that truly fascinating as well. And I'd just seen this video. I think I was watching Bear Grylls, one of them random 11 at night binge watchers, and this video came up, and it was this kid, and he was about my age, and he was driving, or he was being driven through housing estates, and he would see these white vans, these commercially sort of packaged vans, and these were plumbers, electricians, bricklayers, and it had the phone numbers on, and he was taking pictures of these phone numbers. He was then going home and creating a spreadsheet, and he was there, and I suppose this is sort of a USP and a sell in itself. He'd be there with his top off, and he'd be cold calling the numbers on the sides of these, and I can't remember the service he was selling. And I thought, wow, that's a brilliant idea. So I actually emailed a cold calling company, and I thought, okay, well, I've got a bit of time. I'm studying quite hard, and I'm working. I'm just going to see what I can do. And they actually came back, and I said, do you have I'm looking for some experience. Do you have a sales role within the company? And obviously they're not going to give me a role straight off the bat, are they? But they actually said, here are 40 leads. And the company they gave me were a software development company. So they go into a company and they sort of help develop the app. And these leads they'd had a marketing company come in, and they got these leads, and these leads were classified as dead leads. And my role was essentially to call up these leads and get them from dead to alive. So I just had to transfer it to the CTO, and he made the call, the conversion, and I'd get a 20% commission of that. So they said, look, we're not going to pay you, but here's an opportunity, see what you can do. So I thought, great. I watched pretty much every single cold calling video there is, watched Wolf of Wall Street about 25 times, and picked up the phone. And to no surprise, I was just getting absolutely taken to bits, because the marketing team really weren't good on this. I'd love to speak to the person now. They were really, really unquantified leads. They really weren't good. Anyway, so I was calling, and I still remember it to this day. I can't quite remember what the package was I was selling, but it wasn't much, and I got 20% of it. So it was £22 the commission I get. And I called up, and I managed to actually convert this lead. And all it was a, hi, how are you? I wonder if you're still interested in this product. And that was a 2-minute call. And at the time, on lifeguard wage, I think I was probably earning between £10 and £13 an hour, which is okay. But suddenly in 2 minutes, I'd earned £22. Mm-hmm. And in my head, I thought, well, what if we could times this by 30? That's what I could earn per hour. So I thought I'd become some cold caller millionaire. Anyway, I think the guys, I can't remember how that ended, but it ended in some way. And I think I made like 60 quid from it when I was absolutely delighted. In reality, I'd probably spent about 10 hours to it. So I'd probably earned £6 an hour. but from a 15-year-old doing that, it was pretty cool.
There's a lot of learnings in that, isn't there?
There is totally. And it's about what I'll touch on later, about pushing yourself out your comfort zone. That gave me a whole different layer of confidence. So I started to think, I was on this course, this business course, which was predominantly marketing based at the time. I started to think, okay, if I've just been able to use my no skill have I learned, but charisma to sell to someone, what if I could do that on more of a mass scale? What if I could, instead of selling to one person, sell to multiple people at the same time? So I said, okay, marketing. I'm going to learn everything I can about marketing. And I said, right, I'm going to dedicate 2 years to learning absolutely everything. And obviously, marketing, I believe, is something you can't learn everything because it's changing so fast that you just do not have the ability to keep up with it. But I learned graphic design, website development, and a bit of everything. I worked out I was doing 6 hours a day at UCM, and I was doing a few hours a week at work. I said, okay, I've probably got about 3 or 4 hours a day here that I could focus and develop a real skill. So I took a few online courses. I did an online course which lasted a year, and that taught me a lot. So I thought, okay, how can I apply this to monetize it? So I said, okay, I had a brainstorm. I've just earned 20% but been paid nothing from cold calling. How can I apply that in a different situation? So the way I did it was I would just go up to sort of SMEs and small businesses and knock on their doors and say, hey guys, look, let me run your Facebook ads. I've done a course in Meta. Give me 20%. No other charge. If it fails, look, you've got a decent brand now and you've gained some basic brand awareness around that. So I started running ads for cafes, for hairdressers, for trade businesses, and it started to go really well. And I was gaining this experience, and I probably had about 10 clients. They were all just giving me 20% of. I'd create a landing page and the bookings through that landing page, and I'd advertise. And then this slowly turned to them saying, hey, Jenson, he's our social media guy. Would you create a post saying, we're open at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning? And the problem identified here was, I'm not earning any money from that. So if that's not going to direct in any sales for me, therefore commission for me. So this sort of turned into a retainer model. And then I sort of had 10 clients on a retainer model. So I started to build a team. I started to outsource the work. I brought in a website designer. I brought in a social media manager. And as you can imagine, juggling work, I had to quit my job at this point. With what I was learning, it was way too much. And then I had the issue of it's 11 o'clock at night. I've got university or whatever in the morning. And people are calling me saying, hi, mate, can I have a post tomorrow? And it was just getting way too much. So I decided to just stop. And I just said, that's enough. We need to reiterate here. We need to do something different or we're going to end up in some real deep water. So then what happened is I ended up signing, I ended up stepping away and I actually signed quite a big client. And these guys were paying me a higher retainer than I'd experienced. And they're a comic book company. And super interesting company. They're a UK company, but they had connections here. And within 3 months of working with them, they actually signed a deal with Netflix, Black Mirror. Mm-hmm. So suddenly, Jenson Artus from Kurt Michael was working with Netflix, Black Mirror, technically. And I was just blown away. And then I was doing a lot of work for them. So they were taking me away to London. And I started to see there's a lot more money to this. There's a lot more opportunity than just running ads for cafes. There's so much more to marketing. I was in London. I was going to Comic-Cons. I was meeting different people. I was meeting celebrities. It was really, really brilliant. So I took all these ideas and I sat down with a bit of a business mentor, and we decided, okay, we've successfully built a team in marketing. We've built this retainer model. It's quite sustainable. How can we apply that? So we decided to apply it to corporates. So we said, okay, let's do this again. Let's apply all the knowledge that we've learned. Let's bring in the same people and let's target this completely towards corporates. So we brought in a branding specialist. We brought in a performance marketer. We brought in a graphic designer, a website developer, a website designer, and we signed our first big corporate client. 21 months later, we work with some of the biggest companies, most well-known companies over here, and we have clients, a vast variety of clients from the Isle of Man to the UK, to even America. And we've now got a team of 8. We've just brought on a commercial director, and 4 of which are now full time. So it's moving pretty fast. We've got some pretty exciting things coming up. That's pretty much where we are.
Okay, so we'll dig into perhaps some of the nuances of marketing in a minute. Perhaps before we do that, we just finish off maybe getting to know you a little bit better. Obviously, like I said at the beginning, we've had a few catch-ups and coffees, and I was really intrigued by, again, I go back to my own experience as a 19-year-old and couldn't do my shoelaces up.
I didn't say I could.
Slip-ons. So we've talked a bit about values and development, and obviously you're quite... you can see you're pretty driven, whether we want to use the word entrepreneur or not. So just talk a bit about, I suppose, that aspect of. I mean, we talked off air about maybe where you get your drive from, but yeah, and then I suppose the values around that, and just unpack that, because I just think again, I'm not here to talk, but it's refreshing because. And I backtracked yesterday when we were chatting when I said, "Oh, you come across the kind of young generation, there's a certain perception around, and people comment, not everyone, that they don't want to work, blah blah blah." But I think that's true of every generation. I'm
totally
50s now, and I work with, or work or collaborate, or I've seen enough that this isn't a generational issue. It's just it's just a human issue. So, but when you do meet standout younger people, we were talking about Harvey Lowe before we came on air, people like that, and yourself. They stand out. So I'm just intrigued just obviously articulate yourself very well. Again, I couldn't string a sentence together at 19. I probably can't now either. Just talk a bit about that and your values, and appreciate. It's a very open question, but let's just natter about that for a few minutes. So
it is.
Where's that from? What things do you rely on? We're talking about, perhaps you talk about having a physical mentor as well as, I guess, online ones that you follow and learn from as well, and the importance of that for you at your age. Well, at every age, but for you with your.
From a generational aspect, I think. People who slander the younger generation, I'm not quite sure they're right. I think it's very different, but I think there's these timeless lessons from when we were cavemen. There's people who are going to stand out, and there's people who perform well in different roles. I think that's the same with there is now. I think the difference now is, I think people say, "Oh, it's so hard to start a business." Well, there's so much opportunity about that. We've got this whole new digital world. It's completely revolutionary. There's so many people to learn from. 50 years ago, if you wanted to learn about behavioural psychology, you'd have to go into the library and you'd have to look through every book and find one. Now you can go on ChatGPT and say, find me the best audio book on behavioural psychology. You can download it for free, and you can pretty much get a degree level knowledge from technology. It's amazing. So there's a lot of opportunity about there. Values. I don't know. I suppose it's just I don't know what I'm driven by. And no way am I super successful. By the way, I'm not betraying that one bit. But I suppose just to be better than I was yesterday. I think that's a real drive. I've always had this thing where if there's an opportunity, I sort of can't not take it. If I see an opportunity and the stars sort of align, I prefer to fail 20 times than not do it and regret it. So I suppose just a drive for success, to be honest. I think that would be the case in any scenario.
Can we ask about the failure is an interesting one, and talk about it a lot of failure is a good thing and learning from that. You obviously, and I don't mean you per se, but you've got to have a certain amount of confidence and ability, because again, a 20-year-old Martin, failure was like something you just avoided, and therefore you avoided risk. And I guess it's wiring. I guess part of it's wiring, part of it's the environment you brought up in. I think you were talking about, if you don't mind me saying, some of your family are less risk adverse. So where do you think that risk has come from? And we use the word risk not as in frivolous risk, just as in to move forward and to a pace, you have to take a certain amount of risks. Yeah, where do you think that comes from for you, or just a learned behaviour? Or
to be completely transparent, I've had a great upbringing, so I've always had the opportunity to take risk. I've always been able to take risk. My parents have always sort of encouraged risk. I wouldn't say that they're the most risky people, not one bit, but I've always maybe the ability to take risks completely correlates with the ability to push oneself out of their comfort zones. And I suppose that's something I've always tried to do is completely push myself out of my comfort zone, whether that's whether that's getting up on a stage in front of thousands of people at the age of 9, or being in a film with Matt LeBlanc at 10, or recently trying to get on to The Apprentice. Like, these things completely push you out of your comfort zone. And I think every time that you push yourself out of your comfort zone, you become a better person. So it happens every time. Mm. And I think that doesn't just apply to business. That applies to life in any scenario, I think. And I think I've always had that sort of drive to do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's interesting. Again, I probably only figured that out about 5 years ago. I'm somewhat jealous, you know that, at 19 or 18, 17, 16.
Again, there's so much on the internet now. There's so much opportunity there for people to learn, I think.
Yeah. And you mentioned the coach, whether you want to name them or not, but locally, again, was that something you went and sought to someone to sort of coach and help and mentor, whatever the right term is?
I have quite a lot of what I'd call mentors, and they're not particularly physical mentors. It's just more reaching out to people and learning from them. So, for example, when I first met you, I was super interested in what sort of person you are, how I can learn from you. You're CEO of Atla. You've got this amazing podcast. You're doing these different amazing things. I think you can learn from everyone. I think there's a lesson to take from anyone. Being able to be humble and say, okay, I'm good at this, and this person might be bad at this, but is amazing at this. I can learn from them. Is a skill in itself. So from a mentor sort of perspective, I suppose that is it. And so for me, for example, and we're doing pretty well. So our company is doing really well. I'm by far the youngest in it. There's the next person is 31. It's a team of 30-year-olds. But I was saying, okay, well, my technical role would be managing director. I don't really do any marketing anymore. The other guys lead that. I'm doing okay, but I'm humble enough to admit that we need some strategic direction to this. We are dealing with corporates. I've never been involved in a corporate company. Therefore, I need someone to bring in. So I brought in Ty Smith. He's been director at Games Global, director in the GSC. He knows exactly how corporate companies work. So to bring him in to add that extra perspective and experience, it's about being humble and realizing that some things you can't do, and bringing in people from that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's often, I think, people... from my own experience, as you move up the corporate ladder, you assume you know everything. People sometimes assume they know everything. The reality is typically your expertise is in a niche, and to be able to be, like you used the word humble there, humble enough to go, well, I need someone better here and here and here and here. And so, if I'm just that glue between them, then that's my skill set.
Yeah.
So again, very astute again.
I suppose we touched on values there. From a personal values and self-development perspective, it is just about being 1% better every day. I always think of it as if you can become 1% better at something every day, that's at the end of the year you're going to be 365% better.
Yeah,
that's ROI.
Yeah.
That's return on investment. Everything accumulates, and if you can just make that yourself 1% better at something every day, you're going to become great at that specific.
I actually saved it off my phone this morning, which I'll show you when we get off air. A graph, exactly that. Albeit it's compounding, so it's not 365 because you're compounding every day. The numbers way higher. But yeah, I agree. It's good. It's interesting. Okay, let's get into social media. Let's get nerdy. You can get nerdy.
Oh, I'm not sure.
And again, it's interesting because at the start we were talking about perhaps a 19-year-old walking in a room, that there's perhaps some biases within people. We all have them. It's not right or wrong. But then who better to help shape businesses than someone that's lived through and grown up in that space of social media, where the reality is well, I don't have experience there, let alone it's not an ageist thing. I just don't even have the experience. But the reality is, if you've been brought up and lived through it, then and then trained in it as well, what better space to have that in? So let's talk a bit about, I suppose, the evolution of you growing up in social media, because again, that was not a space that I grew up in. And then how that's, you were talking earlier, there's always things to learn. I guess that's marketing in general, but particularly social media, if we talk about that, how that's continuing to evolve.
I think social media is scary. There's this unequivocal change which is happening across the digital landscape at the moment, and it's so significant. There is a digital revolution, is what I'd call it. I'll give you a statistic. So there was a recent case study done, not case study. There was a recent study done, and it was 10 years ago. The average person in the UK was spending 1 hour a day on their phone. 20 years ago, that was 0 hours. There wasn't such thing as a mobile phone, really. Well, apart from really rich people. But 1 hour, 10 years ago. This year, in the UK, the average person spends 3 hours and 21 minutes a day on their phone. That's over 3 times more than 10 years ago. That's 1,222 hours a year the average person in the UK is spending on their phone. Now, to get an average of anything, you have to look at the entire demographic of the population. So let's look at the 91-year-old who doesn't even know what an iPhone is. We're including them in this. So the average person in my sort of generation, unfortunately, is probably spending around 67 hours a day on their mobile phone. Now, if that's not a revolution, what actually is? It's we've never had that before. People don't realise how serious this is, how much they need to change as people, as the way we do business, as the way we interact with others. 10 years ago, kids would go out to play, and that's how they'd share banter. Now they do it on a Snapchat group or WhatsApp group. Everything is totally changes. The way people show off their status. Before it was driving a fancy car, and now it's you can rent a fancy car in Dubai and post a picture of it, and everyone suddenly thinks you're rich. It's scary to see how much this is changing, and especially with what we do, trying to articulate this to companies. So one of our biggest points that we're trying to get across to sort of CEOs and managing directors of finance companies at the minute is they say, okay, well, we don't need marketing. We've got sales guys. Fine. In my opinion, that's salt and pepper. But
what do you mean by that? They're just two separate things.
No, so I think they go well together.
Oh, okay.
Being online, my point is being online isn't about marketing anymore. It's not about lead generation. It was 10 years ago, fine. There's so much more now. Where you can go from 10 years ago, 1 hour a day to 3 hours and 21 hours a day. What's that going to be in 10 years? If companies aren't adapting to this, like Teams. So they would have to, years ago, you'd have to travel to go and have a meeting with someone or do a call. Now you've just got Teams. You can just talk to your team every day online. It's rapidly changing. So to say that being online is just about marketing is a really difficult thing to try and articulate to companies because usually the average MD is 50 and they don't really understand this side. I mean, you're really tech savvy, but people don't quite see it. And by not being let's apply this in a situational context. People think, okay, well, we don't need to be online because we've got salesmen, as I said before. No, it's nothing to do. So I'm gonna do this from the perspective of a young person. So let's just say this company that they've got sustainable revenue, that their MRR is really, really good, but they're actively hiring. Now, from the perspective of a young person, I've used since the age of 11. I've used an iPhone. Or maybe the generation below me actually is even worse. All they know is being online. If they're spending 7 hours a day on their phone, that is literally an additional world to them. It's not just something that they do. It's a completely different world. So for them, let's apply that to applying for a job. They wouldn't do it the traditional way if they're gonna look at a company, because now that there's so many jobs out there, people have people are flooded. If they're gonna want to apply for a company, they're going to check the culture, same as before. The values are the same. You want to check the culture of the company. You want to see how well they're engaging with the local community. You want to see who works at the company. You want to see how they're treating their employees and how you can grow. Now, before you do that in a different way. Now, they use ChatGPT. They might ChatGPT your company. They might check your LinkedIn. They might check your Facebook, your website, your Instagram. And the unfortunate truth is, if they don't match the quality of your company, then from the perspective of that 18-year-old person on their phone, that company isn't great because their digital presence does not match the quality of what they are as a company, and that's what we call digital credibility.
Yeah, and is there? And we hear this quite a bit. Again, I'll look at this through a lens of let's not use the word old, more mature person. Is there? Like, I look back when I first got a job, it was just give me a job. That's all I was interested in when I was 18. Is there more awareness now? You talked about their community, helping the community, doing more work. Culture, is that something that is important? I appreciate it's not to everyone, but perhaps someone coming out of school or looking for career paths at a younger age. That's an important tick box for them.
I totally think it is. Like, again, let's bring this back in time. 200 years ago, kids would be down chimney sweeping, and because it earned money, it was fine. Look at how that's changed over the years. Every year, we're demanding more, and I suppose that's a good thing. If you think about it, there's now health and safety. 100 years ago, there was health and safety. They'd have to do all these checks. Now we've got, is there an opportunity for growth there? Because everything's now so transparent. Because there is this online world, everyone can see into every company. So is there an opportunity for me to grow there, or is it just something I'm going to do to earn money? And no one wants to come out of school and just go into a boring company, do they? And have no opportunity. That's really unambitious. No, I don't think there's people like that. So yeah, I think they are, in the most positive way, it's a really great thing that they are more. They do care more about what they do as a company and how they engage with the local community and what growth opportunities there are within that ecosystem of work.
Do you think then, just talking about that, then that transparency, that a world where we are more transparent than ever, that if we go back generations and time, because you can see opportunities more, therefore, I suppose there's just a drive that, these things do exist. I don't just have to, I mentioned yesterday, our first job, it was just like head down 5 years, just grinding. But I probably didn't know any different, didn't see any different. But do you think because the world is more transparent in many ways, and look, leadership's changed, the way corporates run has changed from this command and control to more open, transparent, everyone together as a team. Do you think that then, from what you're saying then, and just thinking out loud really, that's driving the ambition of young people as well?
I suppose, yeah, there is a lot less autocratic leadership, I suppose would be the right word, within corporate companies now, that they are giving them the opportunity to actually help the company grow, which I think is the right thing. By being more transparent, I guess that could be a promotional aspect to getting people within the company. Yeah. That answers the question.
Yeah. So if we talk a little bit about social media for corporates then, and obviously you were saying you're working in that space on the island at the moment, so let's talk about that particularly a bit now. So again, I'm sort of acutely aware of this from the last couple of years, but brand awareness is so important, and not because you want to look nice, but again, attracting talent, certainly attracting clients is always a good thing as well as part of that process. So again, when you're sitting with clients, you're talking about the suite of areas that marketing is going to help them in, and what are those areas outside of the
totally. So there's obviously that you touched on. There's obviously that main client acquisition and lead generation aspect to it. There's always going to be, I said marketing's not about the promotional aspect anymore, but of course it is. There's always going to be a growing promotional aspect to being online, a way to sell your product, a way to sell the service. But what the point that we're trying to articulate and we're screaming at companies is, this has changed so much more. There's so much more to it now. So an example that I'll use in a few meetings. So let's just say is sponsorship. And I'll explain this. We've got company A and company B. And company A they're an e-gaming company, and they're going to sponsor. For those who don't know, ICE is an e-gaming conference in Barcelona. So they're going to sponsor a stand at that. And let's just say this won't be accurate whatsoever, but let's say they've been promised by ICE, if they sponsor this, they spend £1,000 on sponsoring something to put their banner up, and they'll get 1,000 impressions of that. There's 1,000 people attending that event. Now, that's pretty effective. Sponsorship's always been effective. Some companies get a fund to be able to do so. Some do it from a moral perspective. It's always going to be a really, really good thing to do. It's always going to be quite. Atla, for example, they sponsor loads. It's always really effective. Now, they've spent £1,000. They're getting 1,000 impressions, £1 per impression. That's really their ROI. Now, let's do Company B. Company B are Company A's major competitor. They're also an e-gaming company. They sponsor the exact same stand at the exact same event. Now, Company B, over the last 2 years, have put resources and effort, a little bit of resources and effort, into building a brand online. They've built digital credibility. They've built a following. They're posting engaging content regularly. They're engaging with stakeholders, and they're showing what they are and who they are as a company. They've sponsored the exact same. So they're getting that. They're both getting the 1,000 impressions, and they're both paying £1,000. Now, for the same input, all this company now have to do is take a picture of themselves sponsoring this ICE stand. Let's say they've built up a following of 2,000. They then publish that to their social media, and instantly, they're probably going to get more impressions than they've got followers. So instantly, they've completely they've completely 3 times their ROI. You're probably going to get 3,000 impressions on that post. Now, let's compare Company A to Company B. They've done that. They've got their 1,000 impressions. These guys might get 5 times that for this input.
Yeah,
that's their input.
Yeah.
No different. And that is just crazy. And that's what's going to, I feel like that's what's going to, that increase in efficiency just by building a brand online. That's what's changing. We're in this real arbitrage space and time at the minute where there's this real opportunity for companies to get ahead. And on the other hand, I'd say we're really bad for it, actually. There's still 70% of companies don't have a good online presence. And it sounds all doom and gloom, but I will be opportunistic here, and I will say, if they take advantage of this right now, they can crush their competitors by doing that. Because if they're constantly doing things like this and being online, then they're going to set themselves up so well for the future, and they're going to be so much more effective than their competitors. But unfortunately, their competitors might be left behind until they sort of realise. But that's what I'm saying. There's an opportunity now. The heavens have put down their ladders for companies to climb, and I think that's one of the in the corporate landscape that's a real contributing fact, I suppose.
So the company you speak to when you talk about digital credibility, that is the.
So digital credibility, just for the viewers here, is a label that we've put on, which is explaining or trying to articulate what is happening right now, and that doesn't mean how good your marketing is. It doesn't mean how good your branding is. Digital credibility, to be very simple, means is your company as credible online as they are in real life? Does your online reputation match your offline reputation? And if it does, you're digitally credible. I mean, the whole point of marketing, actually, and the whole point of sales, is actually to amplify the story behind that company. It's actually to make it look better than it is in real life. Mm-hmm. But there's some companies who don't even have a website or don't have anything fundamental. So that's what digital credibility means. It's as a whole, does your online presence match your offline?
And how's the obviously the business is growing, you're doing well. Is that a hard story to sell to get people to understand that digital credibility?
I have to say, so we've recently just took our website down 2 weeks ago, just to give it an update. But we've never actually had to advertise once, which is crazy. We've obviously got a brand and we've got a LinkedIn, and this is it loudly contrasts the services we provide. But what happens to happen on the Isle of Man? It's great because we've never had to advertise, because every time we go to put all our resources into advertising, we get another massive client that comes along. We've never went out, and I never try and sell to companies ever. To be honest, pretty much every client we've had so far has approached us and said, guys, we've seen this coming. One of the younger team, usually your younger directors or one of the younger IT managers said, guys, we're going to get left behind here. We need to do something about it. So usually they approach us, and then we go to help them. So we never had to advertise. We are going to advertise in Q1 and start to really push out there. As the team's built, we've got more opportunity to do that. Sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, no, you kind of answered it there, and I want to move on. But in that same space, when we talk about businesses that and again, I maybe go back, and it might still apply now, but there's certain businesses carry, like, let's say, you call it the face of the business. So it might be the individual, it might be the CEO, it might be the chairman, or whoever it might be, being the face of the business. But do you see a world, and ultimately they're often locally, certainly, then they're the one networking, they're almost the value brand identity that walk around.
Totally.
Would you say that, while that still remains important, there's probably, I'm thinking out loud here, but I'd be pivoting more towards get the focus on the brand, because that's obviously lives forever, whereby that individual doesn't, and that awareness, that value, that I guess brand awareness is the brand itself rather than the individuals.
I'd follow up from that point for saying both are equally important. I'd say building a brand's really important, but what is a brand? Fundamentally, what is a brand? Okay, so this is something I often look at: is what's a football team? The logo changes with a football team. That always happen rebrands. The kit changes, the stadium changes, the players change. Well, what's a football club? And the name changes. What are people supporting? And it's the fans. The exact same with a company. What's a brand? And it's the people behind the business. And it really makes me disappointed, because there's a lot of companies out here as well that are doing really well online, are articulating the services they provide, but they're not demonstrating the pure talent that they have behind the company. And people buy to people sell to people buy into stories. And especially on the Isle of Man, everyone knows everyone. And if you've got the opportunity to show the people behind the business, that it's not just a money-making machine, that there is people behind the business, it's much more than that. It's more of a positive organisation than a money-making business. Why not show it?
Yeah.
Why not show the people behind the brand? So to answer that question, I think the people are the brand.
Yeah.
And we encourage every single client to meet the teams. We encourage every single client to get. Obviously, it's easier with some than others, but to get the people behind the brand and amplify that as much as possible.
Yeah, and I suppose I look back from a business perspective, and then that comes down to culture and the culture of the business, exactly. And therefore how most of them have got a fantastic culture. We work with clients that are paying for them to take holidays and do crazy. I'm like, why don't you guys articulate this from a hiring recruitment perspective, from a company culture perspective, from a people? What are you more likely to do business with? Two of the same companies, company A and B. One treats their employees amazing and has a positive culture and is engaging with the local community and doing positive things, or a money-making machine. Yeah, no,
and that's the problem with sort of where our AI is going, and everything's becoming too. When something becomes too saturated, there's aspects that become unsaturated, which then will be more successful. I believe that everything's becoming so artificial and brandy would be a good thing to say, for use of a better word. That now is the time to show people behind the business, and now's the time to build the foundation of the building.
Yeah.
On the most important things, which is the company culture.
It's interesting. So I listened to Elon Musk a while ago, a couple of months ago. He was on a podcast, and he said online he believes in 5 years, 95% of the content you absorb will be AI generated and AI avatars.
I read an article on this.
Yeah. So again, it's just his opinion, but clearly you can see that already if you look on social media now.
Yeah,
and it's sometimes hard to even know what's real and what's not. So I guess again, that's part of that messaging is making sure your business part of your digital identity online is to show your business. There's a roundabout word, real tangible people, because again, it's primarily, like you say, people do business with people primarily. Of course, you can automate stuff and I can help a certain amount of that, but it's really the human relationship.
Yeah, I think I'm hesitant to take a stance on AI, because you can't be too strong-minded in this world, because everything's going to change. But currently, right now, we refuse to use any AI in content creation. I actually have a bit of disrespect for people who do. I think if you're gonna, it's like look at LinkedIn now. So there's people out there, and I speak to them all the time, and they'll be listening to this, and they'll know I'm talking about them. But there's people who will just say, "Can't be bothered." LinkedIn AI, write me a post, and it'll come up with some absolute gobbledygook. Right? I can then go on LinkedIn now, and I can then look at their post, and LinkedIn auto suggests comments for me to comment on that. Wow, looks good. Whatever the name is, I'm not going to mention, because a case study name, that'll probably be them in real life.
Looks good, Mom.
But yeah, exactly. I'm joking. Yeah. No, but at what point is it just machines communicating with machines?
Yeah.
At what point is that human aspect? And this is the problem. Like, people are saying LinkedIn's becoming more of a Facebook. If it is, great, fantastic. I love LinkedIn. It's such a useful tool. But it's not that it's a bad platform. People are saying, "Oh yeah, it's such a bad platform." No, it's the people that are using it, misusing it, just because they want to use AI. It's a little rubbish. So we will never, when clients are trusting us to portray their brand, we would never use AI in content creation. I think it's Elon Musk's point when he said 95% of AI will be content created. Maybe instead of, so right now when you're doom scrolling or scrolling on Instagram or TikTok, you've got the creator and they're doing some sort of dance or whatever you watch and people watch, and it's by John C. Maybe in the future it's going to be AI generated content, and the status creation will be created by John C.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
So it's not them actually building a self-brand anymore. It's doing that through AI.
Interesting.
That would be scary. And I think marketing in itself, another insight about marketing, has gone very performance-based. And I think to be a good marketer, especially within my team, we like to apply an extreme amount of ambiguity to everything. And ambiguity means the openness to multiple interpretations. So we spoke about Rory Sutherland before. So Rory Sutherland is an extreme genius in behavioural science. He makes the point of the difference in how people are open to interpretation. And he used the Eurostar, for example. So the Eurostar spend millions and millions and millions every year trying to optimise the speed of the train. Okay, well, what does that consist of? That consists of mathematicians looking at completely complex mechanical aspects of the train just to try and optimize that speed. Okay, well, why would they want to optimize this speed? Well, their commercial objective this year is to increase train sales because they're a business. Okay, well, if you're so that's the thinking of a CTO. A CTO goes, okay, we want to increase the ticket sales. Great. What can we do to optimize the speed of the train? Now, if you were gonna apply a level of ambiguity to that, you'd say, okay, let's look at this from a different interpretation. And Rory Sutherland might have touched on this, he might not have, but this is sort of my thinking behind it is, why aren't people taking the train? What's the competition? Okay, well, the main reason people take the train is to commute from work to home, back and forth. Okay, well, what's the competition? Driving. They drive in. Well, instead of spending millions a year on optimizing the speed of the train, why don't we just increase the comfort of the train? Why don't we redo the seats, make the seats more comfortable? And if they're going back and forth to work, it's likely now, talking about the digital world, that there's going to be laptop work. So why don't we enhance the journey of the train by making it work compatible? Why don't we, like, if it was me, I'd spend 200,000 on implementing work desks. So instead of, I travel to London quite a lot to see clients, and I look like a dinosaur trying to do a backflip with my laptop balanced on my knees. Why don't we just bring out a pull out desk, and that's what's going to increase the train sales? Not okay. Yeah, you might get a few more ticket sales by optimizing the speed of a train, but if you completely transform the experience from the commute to work, and they can actually get an extra 2 hours work in a day, and they can go home earlier.
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer. And that's just a small example of how we could. And we try and bring that level of ambiguity into everything. So with every small business, there's always different interpretations, and it's asking sometimes questions backwards to understand that. If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So I've rambled throughout.
No, and the Rory one's a good one. We talked off air, and I'll say it on air when I look at the Steam packet, where that's a long commute, and if that commute, you're doing business in the Northwest, and you're commuting for 3 or 4 hours on that, if you're selling that as almost a work remotely space to commute across the ocean, that's only like going to the Santander Cafe for 4 hours. But if you're doing it on the boat, then the sell to the people to use the boat is comfortable. You can still work, unlike if you're on an aeroplane and you've got the space, and therefore that's the sell, not the comfier seats per se. It's you can get quiet time,
You heard it here first today. Martin Hall, Santander on the sea.
yeah, Santander on the sea. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the type of social media. So maybe, in fact, let me finish on marketing, because I thought you were going to go down the path of. So this is one of the things, and maybe you can help. It'll be forever in people's mind. But return on investment for marketing is always a. I mean, I've seen that all my career where. And obviously, there's elements where it's easy to track because it's. Did I win this piece of business? You sponsor ICE. Did we get a client from ICE type of situation we talked about earlier? But there's that softer skill where you talk about maybe that digital presence online, just for recruitment, etc. And sometimes quite hard to correlate. I've done this piece of marketing, and this is the benefit of it here. So how do you talk to clients about that and bringing those two things together?
So obviously, there's loads of different aspects from a digital credibility standpoint and how we can track ROI. There's obviously lead generation with tools like Meta and LinkedIn. It depends what sort of company you're working with, but it's easier to track ROI. Unfortunately, I will just touch on this quickly. I think marketing has become too performance-based, and I think this is influenced by Meta. It's the fact now that small business owners can go online and they just think marketing is running a Facebook ad and tracking, okay, great, we got 37% CTR, click-through rate on this ad, great, and it's taking that creativity away from it. At the end of the day, humans are telling how you sell to someone is telling them a story. It's going back to the caveman days. You'd be sat around a fire telling ghost stories. That's the same in marketing. It's the same in sales. It's about telling a story. If you watch any film, you judge your dopamine response on how good that story is. So to apply, okay, sorry, I just went way off topic.
No, so come back to dopamine.
So ROI in digital credibility. So there's a few ways to track it. So obviously, client acquisition you can track through various platforms. Whereas, okay, so we touched on hiring before. Let's use a slightly different example. If we can build a brand online for a CSP, let's just say that, for example, so a corporate service provider, and we can build them up a great presence. We're showing the company culture. We're showing they're engaging with the local community. We're showing they're a great company. And we can build up a decent brand where stakeholders are often engaging with them. We can then put a post out, and instantly we put a hiring post out for them. So we worked with a company recently, and within, I'm sure they won't mind me saying this, within 1 hour, they didn't have 3 CVs, they had 3 full applications. Now, from an ROI perspective, let's look at if they were to bring in a recruitment company. If you're to bring in a recruitment company, they're going to take 20% of that first year's salary. So let's say it was a senior trust administrator on £60,000 a year. They're going to take £12,000. If we can build them a brand, and we can prove that by building this brand and showing what the company are, and we can put one post out and we can get these applications, and you're going to get better candidates, not just more candidates, but better candidates, because they can relate to your company more, if we can show that we've saved the costs of a recruitment company, by doing that, we've saved £12,000 straight away, just on that one thing. So from an ROI perspective, there's that. I touched on sponsorship before. They three times their impression. They times their impressions by 3. There's plenty of ways to just because the landscape's changing. There's ROI can always be measured.
Yeah, and I guess it's probably easier. I think if I observe over my years, easier now because a lot of that marketing is digital, and therefore it's easier to flow through. So back in the day, you might put it in a magazine, and the magazine's on 100 places around the island, or even internationally, it's in the back seats of aeroplanes. And you might get an inquiry, and you can never always relate it back to, because I suppose the filter, especially for the internet now, the filter can come through a place where you can then go, the first question is, or it's driven from an area where the digital footprint can show you where it's been driven from. I think companies also focus too much on lead generation and less so on customer retention or repeat purchase. If you've gone to all that, this is what I never understand. If you've got your CAC and you've got how much it is to bring that customer in, you've spent a lot of money to bring that customer in. Why not then focus double the effort on keeping that customer, your lifetime value? Why not try and keep that customer for longer? Instead of going out and doing another campaign to generate leads, you can upsell that customer. You've proved that this customer is already interested in your business. Why wouldn't you try and just optimize their experience? Why wouldn't you just try and enhance their experience and then try and upsell to them or try and get them on a further contract? I think there's such an opportunity there, which so many companies neglect. That can really be taken advantage of, especially with existing companies. And you can do this now through email tracking, and there's so many ways to do it. Marketing's so exciting now. Yeah, I'd agree. I think in my experience, customers always, you speak to every business, and of course every business will tell you they're customer centric, of course, because who isn't? But are they investing for that client? And I think the stats, I don't know what it is, but the stats to upsell to an existing client to the cost of finding the next new client is minimal compared to finding that new client. And there's probably not enough focus. I can't say for all businesses or a lot of businesses, but that's the vibe I get from.
Totally. I will say this is an analogy that we sort of have used to articulate to companies how we work. And I'm sorry, guys, if any of the team are listening to this, I drill this into you all day. It's so repetitive, but this is, and clients, we've probably heard this 100 times. So we have the Swiss Army knife analogy, and this is how we sort of implement ourselves into companies. So I don't even have my Swiss Army knife. It's attached to my keys. But a Swiss Army knife analogy is your Swiss Army knife. This is a marketing manager who are sort of our competition. There is a point where a company can get so successful that they need a marketing team. Totally understand that. But there is this midpoint which we're sort of working with. So a Swiss Army knife is a marketing manager. They've got their decent little knives. They're decent. This marketing manager's decent at graphic design. They've got a decent pair of scissors. They're decent at website design. They've got their pair of nail filers. They're okay at marketing strategy. Now, what we've got is slightly different. We've got, instead of that Swiss Army knife, we've got a massive chainsaw, which is the graphic designer, an amazing graphic designer, an amazing website designer, an amazing marketing strategist that we can apply on a fractional basis to a company. And that sort of not replaces it, because we do work alongside marketing managers, but in effect can sort of replace it. And we can provide that on a completely tailored service to them. So a lot of marketing companies in the UK and on the Isle of Man, they will charge per project, and they will try and, what's the best way to say this, do specific projects where we can work with a client on a sort of long-term basis to try and get them to achieve their goals by providing these guys on that sort of service. I've gone off topic there.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like you say, with that, I suppose in the drawer behind you, you've got all sharp tools in all the sharp areas, whereby you can just pull out one of those tools. You don't necessarily, for businesses, need
Absolutely
the scissors, the knife, and everything. You can just bring your chainsaw out, which sounds quite daunting. So just we obviously touched on AI, and maybe just to finish off, and it's $1 million question, and maybe if we forget about the AI element of this, but at the same time thinking about it, the future, like marketing, where we're going now, you see like so many content creators coming along. And I mean, I imagine it would be a field there'll be, as time goes on, it's going to be more and more flooded because there's so many content creators out there. And then just applying that to the space in marketing in general, where again, it's a very open question, but the future of marketing, if I go back 20 years, we'd maybe not anticipate it being in a digital space. Where do you see it in 15, 20 years? Is it just more digital, or do you think there might be almost a pullback where people want to start becoming, let's say, more, I don't know, traditional, if that's the word, face-to-face? I don't know. I don't know whether it's even something you'd think about.
5 words. Attention is the new currency. By that, I mean, we're now entering a digital world where we are completely over-dopamized by every 15 seconds. A different content creator from a different country talking about a different thing is in our hand. We've got this complete, overwhelming amount of information. And it's the guys who will be able to, if the future is, and I hope it, I really, really hope it's not, but if the future is, people are spending seven hours a day on their phone. That's where the people are. The currency is where the people are. And their attention is the currency. That's how you're going to be able to sell things. So these guys who are starting a personal brand, if they are successful and they do have hundreds of thousands of followers, they're the guys that are going to be able. That's going to be the new. They're going to be the new ambassadors. The unfortunate side of this now is to be a celebrity 30, 40, 50 years ago, you had to be talented. You had to be an athlete or a really good singer, a really good boxer. Like if you look at all the old celebrities, like Tyson, Muhammad Ali, Adele, she's not too old, but they had to have talent. And now you've got people like Angry Ginge who just streams and plays Xbox all day and plays on his phone and videos it. Now, that's not the guy that's got all the attention, and that's one of the big changes which I've sort of seen happen. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I don't know who Angry Ginger is.
He was on I'm a Celebrity.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, spot the whole guy in the room.
Who streams all day.
yeah. Although, is there an argument? I mean, we could argue about the definition of what talent is, but the reality is they're talented as something.
Less talented.
Yeah, or different talent, I'd maybe call it. Because the reality is that they're talented at what they're doing. It's just not boxing or singing. It's
I think
content creation. And
possibly, yeah.
I think as humans, we are, again, we were talking about this from a generational standpoint a few days ago. We can't, like, it's just my observation, we can't necessarily criticize that because we're the ones flicking through it, liking it. And I say we, every observer, isn't it? It's if nobody wanted to see that, it wouldn't gain momentum. So whatever society or social media pushes, ultimately the other side of that phone, which is all us, we're pressing the likes for our particular areas, of course, but there's obviously a want and desire for that. But yeah,
there is.
I'll go and look up Angry Ginge after.
That's it. Yeah, I actually met him on a train once, so
oh right, okay.
Who I am? This doesn't get crazy.
Well, he's I'm sure he's making a bit of.
So when you've got Stephen Bartlett sat here, don't bring that
up. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for your time. Like I say, really interesting chat on marketing, life, chatting. Again, and going back to the age point, but it's really impressive. I could think of many words, but impressive. And you come across very well as well.
I appreciate that.
So, keep grinding. And thanks for your time, Jenson.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Martin, it's been a pleasure.
Pleasure. It's a word out from Mon.
Poor flimsy humans. Don't you wish you were flawless like me? A towering inferno of physical perfection?
I hate to pop your blimp-like ego, but you're not perfect.